Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video it is going to be my January wrap up. I can't believe we're already at this point where we are doing a January wrap up. I don't know if I like it went by so slowly, but like it's fast to a point where we're here, if you know what I mean. So let's just get right into all the books that I read in January. So the first book I read was The Season of Secrets by QB Tyler. This was the newest release and this was 5 stars, and the fact that I had a 5-star read as my first book in 2024 was amazing. It was like such a great start to the year. Like things were looking good at this point. This book was so good, so gripping. I read it so quickly and I highly recommend it. As you know, if you've been here for a while, QB Tyler is one of my favorite authors. She can never ever go wrong. I just love all of her books and I'm so glad that I read this, and I can't wait until another QB Tyler book. Then I read Here With Me by Brooke Montgomery. So this is actually the second book in the series, but the first, because there is a prequel before this, but within this you can read them as standalone. So I obviously read this one and I absolutely love this. I rated it 4.5 stars. It is such a great, lovely, beautiful but heartbreaking stories. So this book starts off with Fisher and he ends up losing his daughter at 10 years old, and that obviously destroys him, and that is just such a heartbreaking part of the story. Please check the trigger warnings. And then it moves on years later and that is where you meet Noah, and she loves, I think it was horse racing, or she supports it and stuff, and her family owns this farm and obviously she helps out with that. But anyway, Fisher and Noah end up meeting. They have a one-night stand, and then Noah finds out that Fisher is actually her ex-boyfriend's dad. I know, crazy. So this is age gap, ex-boyfriend's dad, small town. If you love all those tropes, this is definitely the book for you. This is just so good and I highly recommend. Then I read Irresistible Stranger by Lucia Franco. This I did enjoy, but I decided to rate it 2.75 stars, and that is because I liked it. Obviously it's a novella, so you can't really rate it any higher. I would have liked a bit more, but I feel like everything was rushed, which is understandable again because it is a novella. So I don't know, maybe if this gets turned into a full story where you actually get more to it, then I might like it a little bit more. But it was good for a novella, it was good for what it was. Then I read Caught Up by Liz Tomford. I rated this 4.75 stars. I absolutely love this. I'm so sad that it's the last book. I'm not sure if it's the last. It's not the last book in the series, but it's the last book for now until I think Play Along comes out. I believe that is part of the series. But this is about Kai and Miller, and Kai has a son and he's always firing his nanny, and obviously he's part of the sports. Does he play? I forgot. He plays some types of sport. I'm terrible. So yeah, anyway, so he has to have a nanny for his son, but he ends up firing them all. He doesn't think anyone's good enough, and then his coach is like, I'm going to hire my daughter to look after your son, so then you can't fire the nanny because obviously my daughter. So that ends up happening, and then obviously feelings start to occur, blah blah, and it's amazing. But I would say there's kind of a enemies to friends to lovers kind of thing in here, because obviously Kai doesn't like Miller at first, then but there's so many scenes in this that I absolutely love. I absolutely love this whole book. It's amazing. If it wasn't for The Right Move, this probably would have been a 5-star book, because I like The Right Move so much more. That is why I rated this 4.75 stars, because I absolutely loved it, but The Right Move was better, But I would definitely say the best books in the series so far is The Right Move and this one. I just can't. I love it. Then I read Don't Let Her Stay, and I rated this 3.5 stars. This book was so wild. It was so crazy. It definitely kept me hooked. I read it in one sitting and I read it so quickly, but there was definitely times where I was really annoyed with some of the characters that are involved, but I think you are supposed to feel annoyed in a sense because it's part of the story. But the way everything ends up this is a wild and crazy read. If you're looking for that, then this is the book for you. I just can't believe it, So I would highly recommend it. But a quick summary of this book. It's about, I can't remember the names, but it's about this woman, and she is married obviously to her husband, but her husband has a daughter that they haven't seen in, I think it was 3 years or a few years, because this daughter didn't like the fact that her father married. It would help if I knew the names. This would be so much easier. Joanne, daughter Chloe, Richard. Okay, so Joanne married Richard, and Richard has a daughter named Chloe, before this marriage, and they haven't seen Chloe in many years because she didn't like the fact that Richard had married Joanne. And then all of a sudden, when Joanne gives birth to their new daughter, Eve, or Evie, I'm not sure how it is. I think it's Evie. All of a sudden, Richard receives a note from Chloe saying, "Can I come and see you? I want to get to know my baby sister." And this is like weird, you know? But anyway, Joanne is like, "Oh, I'm going to finally get to know my stepdaughter, blah, blah." And obviously Richard is happy because he hasn't seen his daughter in a while. So she stays. Then weird things start to happen. Some manipulation starts going on. And I'm going to leave it at that. But some crazy, wild stuff happens. So if you want to know what they are, I recommend this book. I'm going to have to speed this up because I've only talked about like 4 books and it's already 9 minutes. Okay, so the next book I read was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This I decided to rate 4 stars because it was very intriguing and I did really enjoy it. I read it quite quickly. But I don't know, I just didn't get that 5-star feeling. So this book is about Avery, and she is, I think she's 17 at this point, yeah. And all of a sudden she receives this inheritance from this man that she doesn't know, has no relation to or anything. And this person has grandsons called Jameson and Grayson. And there's 2 others, but I can't remember the names. And everyone's confused in this situation because it's like a big inheritance, and they're like, why has this girl received this inheritance from my grandfather? But anyway, the condition is she has to stay in the house for a year with the family to get the inheritance. So that is what this book is about. This, like I said, I did really enjoy. It's very gripping, and I mean, it's more gripping because you're like, why has Avery received this inheritance from someone she doesn't know? So yeah, I would recommend it. Then I read A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This is the 3rd book in the series. Now, most people I heard before I read this said that it was like the worst book in the series, that they was like kind of disappointed. I'm going to say I don't think that. I would say I love it as much as the others, because you get everyone's point of view in this. This was just very gripping. I read it very fast and highly recommend it. I just feel like it wraps up the series nicely, and I don't know, I personally really enjoyed this, and I don't know, I can't remember what people were saying that they didn't like about it, but I liked everything about it. I felt like it ended the series really well, and yeah, but I can't really tell you much about this one because obviously it's the 3rd book in the series. Then I read When Breath Becomes Air. I obviously didn't rate this because it was a memoir, but I would definitely say it was very interesting to read, but obviously very heartbreaking at times because this I'm not sure how to say the last name, but I'm so sorry. Yeah, he never actually got to finish the story, and like his wish was for it to actually like end up coming out, and it has, and it's done so well. So it's definitely heartbreaking in the sense of that, but definitely very interesting to read. Then I read The Short Second Life of Brie Tanner. So I rated this 2 stars. The thing with this is I feel like I would have enjoyed it if I had read it in between. I think it's the 2nd and 3rd book. No, 3rd and 4th book. I think it's like it happens between them. But this was one of those books that I just kept forgetting about because I read the Twilight series back in 2021, I believe. And obviously I got this book with the rest of the series, so it was like next to each other, and I just kept on putting it next to each other, not taking it out, like to separate it from my physical TBR. So that is why I kept forgetting about it. And then when I was reorganizing my bookshelves, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this out so I can actually read it. And I did read it because it was very short, and it was okay, it was average. I don't really have any thoughts about it, to be honest, but like I said, I feel like I would have enjoyed it more if I had like reread Twilight series and read this in between, because this is supposed to be like the book in between 3 and 4, I believe. Then I read How the Grump Saved Christmas, and I rated this 3.75 4-star. This was like, I actually really enjoyed this, and I read it so fast, and it's definitely like a great Christmassy read or like winter read, because I was originally going to read this at Christmas time and I never actually got around to doing that, so I read it in January instead, because obviously it's still winter and I was like, let's go give it the winter vibe, you know. And I did really enjoy the story. I don't know what it was, it just felt like something was missing, and I'm not sure what, but this was very interesting. So I'm so bad with characters' names. So it's about Elias and Isabel, and they actually like dated when they were like teenagers, but then Elias ends up like moving out of this small town because he feels like there's big better things out there for him, and he's not going to get it in this small town, so he obviously ends up moving. And then Isabel's family farm is like going downhill, they can't afford it anymore, so they don't want to get rid of it, but like Elias is like team, I'm not sure what they are, but they keep like nagging and being like, sell the farm to us and whatever. But Elias ends up getting on the task, and he ends up going back to a small town to try and convince Isabel to sell this farm. And I'm just going to leave it there because obviously I don't want to ruin it too much. But it is very interesting and I would recommend it. Then I read Which Happens, and I rated it 1 star. I don't actually remember much about this, if I'm being honest. I don't remember being very bored, but lucky enough, it was a short story. It was a novella, so it didn't take long. There are more books. I don't think I'll continue, to be honest. Then I read Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. I rated this 3 stars. This was a very wild book, let me just tell you. I honestly don't know what to think of it, but let me just say, this is wild. The shark scene is very understandable. I go into more depth in my vlog, I think, but this crazy, and I understand what people are saying. I would definitely say it got better near the end and at the beginning, but in the middle was quite I felt like it dragged on a little bit. And then I read Paper Princess by Erin Watt. I rated this 2 stars. Or was it 2.5? No, it's 2 stars. I'm definitely going to continue with the series because of the way it ended, but I just feel like it's quite boring, not my thing. I thought it was going to be something else, and it was something completely different when I went into it, but that's obviously my fault. Then I read Theharis by Rachel Hawkins. I also rated this 2 stars. I feel like I ruined the experience for myself because I listened to the audiobook, but there's loads of articles and newspapers and loads of different letters and things that I feel like I ruined the experience, because obviously in an audiobook you can't experience that. I didn't know the difference, and I didn't know who was really speaking at times, so I feel like I ruined the experience for myself. But from what I got of the story, I did really enjoy the story. Then I read Aishas Memoir, and obviously I didn't rate it, and it was very interesting. From what I heard of people who have the physical copy, it's just mainly pictures, so I don't know. People are wishing that there's more dialogue, but I thought it was interesting. Then I read Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton. I rated this 1 star. This was just too wild, too crazy, not for me, but I'll get into it further along, but I'm glad I read it. Then I read Butcher and Blackbird, and I rated this 4.5 stars. I would definitely say I really enjoyed it. It's definitely very dark, but it's done in a comedy way. I listened to the audiobook. The audio is so good because you get different characters, you get the sounds of everything that's happening. It is so good. Highly recommend if you haven't read it already. It's definitely a very fast read as well. Then I read Come Molly May, which is Molly May's memoir. I didn't obviously rate it. Then I read The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I obviously can't talk about this too much. I did rate it 4 stars. Can't talk about it too much because it is the second book in the series, so I'm just going to leave this here. But I did enjoy it. I did like it. Then I read all of the Hunger Games series, including the 4th one, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I am going to say, there's a video coming soon that you'll get all my thoughts on, so I'm not going to talk about it now, but look out for that. It's coming on the 7th, which actually I think is my next video. Exciting. Okay, then I read Little Girl Vanished by Denise Grover Swank, I think they say it. I'm just going to read my review. I did rate it 4 stars. Well, I could not put this down. Harper Adams has moved home to her distant parents after shooting a kid in what she thought was self-defense. But the gun wasn't found. The cops have turned her back on her, and when she heads home, wallowing in the bottom of a bottle, the cops there have an issue with her, and she believed that bungled the case of her sisters 2 decades earlier, only to find herself drawn into a similar disappearance in the present day as the childhood friend of her sister, the one who should have been with her the day she was kidnapped, wakes to find her daughter is missing. Harper Adams is honestly one of the best heroines. If you are looking for a thriller, mystery, contemporary crime, detective, and romantic suspense story, then this is the book for you. So that was my review on that. I did get an art, so I'm very happy about that. Then I read The Truth You Told, which was another arc I got. Now this is the second book, but I did rate it 4 stars, and this is another one I'm going to just read my review on. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I noticed that this is a sequel, so it would so if you want to read it, read The Lies You Wrote First, which is obviously the first book. A serial killer is about to be executed after sitting on death row for some years. However, there seems to be a few murders that they believe are copycat. Callum is a forensic psychologist who lost his wife to the hands of Nathaniel Conrad, the same serial killer. Or was it the copycat? Everyone is racing for answers before the execution. Will they find them? You have to pay real close attention to all the characters, as there are many of them, and most of them are suspects, but this is one of the things I loved about the book, as it was difficult to guess, and I was more shocked at the end. Let me just say the author did an amazing job with this book, and the book will be released on July 2nd of 2024. Obviously, this is another arc, which I'm so thankful that I got, but when it comes out, I definitely highly recommend you pick this up. Obviously, read the first book first. I didn't do that, obviously, because I didn't know at the time, but I think I might go back one day and I think you might get a better experience. Then I read The House Sitter, which is also another arc that I got, and this is my review for that one. I rated it 3 stars. Drew takes a job house sitting for someone well known on social media, but she intends to find the means to ruin the stranger's life in order to protect her own. This book is easy to read. If you are looking for a book to read in one sitting, then this is the book for you. Or if you are looking for a slow burn suspense, then this book is also for you. So yeah, I would also highly recommend that one. And then I also read Off the Beaten Path, and wow, was this book good. So I'm gonna read my review, and it's quite long. So I rated it 4.25 stars. This book follows Wren and Holden. Wren had purchased a super cute cabin in the small mountain town of Fontana Ridge that she can't afford, and when her contractor pulls out of her project, she's freaking out. It comes Holden Blankship, her grumpy and tight neighbor, who is the dad of the most adorable 6-year-old June. Of course, being around each other would mean they won't fall for each other, right? I read this book so fast. It is captivating. It is so easy to read in one sitting. This was the perfect small town single dad romance. I loved every minute of it. Madison's writing is so good at transporting you to this small town filled with comfort. I adored Wren and Holden and June. They were perfect. I love the little family they created. One thing I love about single dad romances is when it's a 6-year-old daughter and watching the FMC form such a tight bond with the little girl. Read if you like small town romances, grumpy sunshine, no third act breakup, single dad, grumpy but only soft for her. I can honestly talk about this book forever. It will be released January 26th, so it's already out, which is amazing. But yeah, I would highly recommend that one because it's so good, so cute, and I just absolutely loved it. I'm really trying to rush through these. Then I read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and I rated it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. It was so heartbreaking though. I did have to take my time with it because just the mention of war made me so anxious, but that is like, I think a normal thing. I don't know. I don't know if it was just because I was reading it on like anxious days, but I just had to take my time with it. But I would definitely say it's such a beautiful but heartbreaking story. The way it's written is amazing. I would highly recommend this. I can't believe I put this off for as long as I did. Like, I honestly thought it was going to be so difficult for me to like digest, read and everything, but honestly it wasn't. Because then I read My Life with the Water Boys. I rated it 3 stars. I would definitely say I prefer the show over the book, but it was nice and like fast paced and easy to read, and I did enjoy my time reading it. I did like it. Then I read Betting on You by Lynn Painter, which I also rated 3 stars, I think. Yeah. This again, I read it in one sitting. It was very fast paced, very enjoyable, but I don't know, I don't know if it's because it was YA, but I just felt like something was missing. I don't know what it was. I just felt like something else could have been added. I don't know. And I just felt a few bits cringy, obviously because it's YA. I was just a bit like, oh, or like some parts weren't realistic. Like, are you going to see a man saving a cat in a tree? Is he really going to climb up that tree? I don't know. How many times do you see that in real life? I don't know. I think just that scene, the way it was written, I don't know. Then I read The CoWork by Freedom McFadden. I rated this 3 stars as well. It was definitely I liked, but there wasn't anything really like special about it. There was a few times I was bored or I felt like it dragged on a little bit, which is very unexpected, and I was just a bit like, okay, let's go. I don't know, it just wasn't one of my favourites from Freedom McFadden. Then I read Madam by Sarah Kate. This is the last book and I'm so sad, but I am happy I finished this series now. So I rated this 4 stars because it was very enjoyable and I did like it and I read it in one sitting, but I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like there were a few things could have been done in a different way. I still really enjoyed it though. I don't know, it didn't, right, I'm going to say it like this. I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars because I just didn't like it as much as I liked the first 4 books. That is what I'm going to say here because it's true. So it's like my least favourite in the series, but I still enjoyed it. Like, I'll still recommend it. Like, go and read the whole series, So yeah, I don't really want to say too much about it because yeah. Okay, then I read A World for You, which was another arc, so I'm going to read my review. I rated this 4.5 stars. Remington Wild is a single dad and just took over the Wild River Rancher family business. He finally admits that he needs help. Erin Montgomery arrives to help. Erin has recently moved to Bitterroot Valley. She enjoys a quiet life, escaping Seattle from a stalker in Bitterroot Valley. Nobody knows her or her famous family. With Remington, the sparks are there, but with those survive the secrets that come along with them. Single dad and nanny is my ride or die trope, and the author did the trope amazingly. Erin is a strong and independent woman. She doesn't want to rely on her parents' wealth and fame, and I admire her for that. The narrators did an amazing job with this story. They brought the characters to life very well. There's also No Thodak Breakup, which is amazing. Tropes. So if you like these tropes, then this is a book for you. Single dad nanny, small town romance, age gap, cowboy vibe, grumpy sunshine, found family, and the trigger warnings are stalker and violence against women. And this book came out January 30th, like recently. So I would highly recommend that one, obviously. And then I also read Don't Let Her Go, which I rated 3 stars. It was also an arc. So the trigger warnings are graphic child abuse, sexual abuse, and rape. Marissa Clemens reports her 4-year-old daughter Emma missing, but with no evidence of a child at her home. Only Billy Ann doesn't see her as a fantasist, even when Marissa can supply no background details on a photograph. In the meantime, there is a killer on the loose, and Billy Ann suspects a link to Emma. The story started being really intriguing, but I found myself losing interest about halfway through. There was so much potential for this book. I have mixed feelings about it, but I would still recommend if you love your mysteries. And this comes out February 2nd, which was yesterday as I was filming this. Then I read The Takeover, which was also another art, and my review was 3 stars. And this was a quick and easy romantic read. The characters were likeable. This book is a nice, quick, light-hearted read, and this came out January 30th of 2024. And then I also read Midnight Ruin by Katie Robert, which was also another art, and I rated it 3.5 stars. And I read a very long review for this, but I highly recommend this. As expected, this was very, very spicy and did not disappoint. I love the relationship dynamic between, I don't know how to say this, Eurydice, Orpheus, and Charon. You can tell they really love and care for one another. As always, the narrators bring these characters to life with their performances. I can't imagine any other duo narrating it. So this came out January 16th, which is, I think it was the 6th book in the series. And if you can read them as standalones, because I have only read the 1st book and then I've moved on to the 6th book. But I'm going to go through the series and reread this one so I can get like the full experience. And then I read, I have the CoWork and I didn't hold it up. Okay, the CoWorker I read. Then I read Nora Goes Off Script, which I rated 3.5 stars. This was actually really quick, really fun, and the dynamic with the characters I really loved. I would just definitely say if you want something light-hearted, fun, then this is the book for you. Obviously, there are some issues, but then I read Haunting Adaline. I'm going to full detail in a video, but I rated it 4.25 stars. I'm so excited to read the 2nd book. This book, I was not expecting to like as much as I did. It's very dark, very, very like graphic, just, but I love it. Check the trigger warnings if you're going to read this. This book isn't for everyone. So that's on that. Then I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and I rated this 2 stars. I honestly thought I was going to like it a bit more. I just found myself being bored most of the time, and I don't know, because it is about a woman who just decides to sleep for a year. So, I mean, what can you really read about that? Not much, really. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think this book was for me. Then I read The Graham Effect, which I decided to rate 4 stars. This was definitely very fun. I loved it so much. I read it very quickly, very fast paced, so intriguing, and I just loved seeing Gigi's story. And yeah, I just really loved it. Not really much to say about it. Then I read Love Redesign by Lauren Asher. Right, see how thick this is? I read it in one sitting, but I did decide to rate it 3.25 stars because this was definitely my least favourite book from Lauren Asher. I honestly thought I was going to rate this 5 stars. I don't know why. I think it's because it's set in the same small town as Final Offer, and that was a 5-star read for me. But this is definitely my least favourite, but I still really enjoyed it and I would still recommend it. Obviously, I was able to read it in one sitting. I just love Lauren Asher's writing. I love her book. So yeah, I would still recommend it, but I'd definitely say it's like disappointed in the fact of I thought it was going to be a 5-star. Then I listened to Rogue by Elle Kennedy, and I listened to it in one sitting while colouring, and it was a great time. But I rated this 2 stars because it was about the same thing, and I felt like it was dragged on sometimes, but I did still really, really like it. I didn't really enjoy it, but I did like it. There's some parts where I was like bored. Oh my gosh, what's her name? Casey's sister irritated me sometimes. Some of the characters just really bothered me, but this was definitely better than the 1st book, let me just tell you. Then I read The Simple World by K.A. Tucker. I also read all of this while colouring the same page as Rogue, so it took me like 7 hours to colour 1 page. But anyway, I rated this 3 stars. This was so heartbreaking in the end. I cried because you get so attached to the characters, and then what happens? It rips you, okay? But I really enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to be reading the other book. This was just so heartbreaking, but so amazing as well. If you like small town, this is the book for you. And then lastly, I read Lessons in Corruption by Adaline, and I rated this 4.25 stars. Now, I actually really enjoyed this. It's teacher-student, but the woman is actually older, which I'm not normally a fan of, but I didn't mind it in this book. I actually really enjoyed it, and the story was definitely it was fun, you know, and I'm definitely going to be continuing the series. I'm so excited for the second one, especially. That's the one I've heard the most good things about. But yeah, I would highly recommend this. So those are all the books that I read in January. There's a lot of them, 44 books, which I'd never say is a good month for the fact of, yeah, the amount of books that I read, but also because I did have quite a few amazing reads, which I haven't had in a while. And I did enjoy my time reading in January. I don't know, it was a good reading month in my opinion. But that is the end of this video. I'm going to end it here because it's very long from what I can tell. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye!